This video will cover the project file solution for Part 4A, found on page 629 in the text. We're going to add the activity status information as reported on Table A 2.3, and then we'll take a look at what we've come up with. We're going to simulate the passage of time looking at the information from Table A 2.3 on page 629. And the first thing we have to do is recognize in our simulation that it's now March 31st. And we report that in the project ribbon. We go to the project information icon, and under status date, we're going to move this calendar up to where we are in our simulation. It's March 31st. And that will impact earned value calculations that we'll see later on. But it's very important whenever you're creating a status report to make sure that you record the actual date that your information is relative to. To record entry, we need to use a different view, and we're going to come to our View ribbon, and we're going to select Tables, and we're going to look at Tracking. Now this is the tracking Gantt, but the tracking table is going to allow us to put in actual start dates, actual finish dates, and percent complete where applicable. We're going to demonstrate actual duration and remaining duration and see how all this impacts cost, and work again is defined in hours. First things first, looking at percent complete versus physical percent complete, understand that the physical percent complete is a different way to track your project, where we're going to be tracking percentage completion by discussing, if you will, time passage on each of these activities. We're going to basically do it in a more subjective setting where we discuss with the project or the task owners, hey, how far are you? They'll say, I'm 25% done, I'm 75% done, or we can relate it to time. That's what the percent complete column is all about. The physical percent complete column is something, we're going to come over here and show you that under the Advanced tab, scroll down. It's a different and it's an alternative way for a project to calculate your earned value, where you can actually set it to physical percent complete. I'm just going to leave it as is, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that column, and then I'm going to explain that physical percent complete, let's say you're putting down a pipeline, and you really don't care about all these individual tasks. You want to know how many miles of pipe have been put down, and your pipeline's going 100 miles. So your physical percent complete, you would say, you know, I've gone 10 miles, so I'm 10% complete. I've gone 15 miles, I'm 15% complete. It's just that. It's just a different way to manage your progress. So you'll either use the time relationship, or you can actually use, as it says, a physical representation of how far we've progressed. All right, that being said, what we need to do is take a look at how we're going to enter in our information. And for the survey, we're going to start our start date. That was January 3rd of 12. We started that on time, and we finished that on February 2nd, which was a little bit late. Now I have this set up as a fixed duration task, and what it says here is the duration of this fixed duration task will change to accommodate the resource assignment, meaning I said it was 20, but I've just reported 22 days of work. So I need to tell the software that I didn't make a mistake. So I'm just going to say OK. Now, we're going to take a look at, and I'm going to double click on Set Product Specs, and on the Advanced tab, that shows fixed duration. I'm just going to demonstrate one thing here. Change that to fixed units. And now under the setting of the product specs, I'm going to put 2/3/12, and I'm going to, again, violate the duration of this by saying it took me 18 days against an original plan of 15 days. So let's see what happens, because I changed that to fixed units. I press enter and I don't get that warning. Again, that's the difference between the duration in the units and the discussion regarding units versus duration and work. So just a quick example of those two things. We're going to do the shelf life report, and 2/29/12, operating in a leap year. The actual finish date is 3/13/12. Okay. Now we notice a lot of things are happening. Our actual duration is progressing. Our actual costs are moving. Work is counting hours. These are all the things that happen in our updates, 3/14/12 and 3/19/12 for the actual finish. I do want to point out that when you're working this table, I have found it's a little temperamental, and it's really best to work left to right. You can go the other way, but understand that when you put entries over here, it may do funny things with what's working over here. So please work this table left to right. It's just going to save you a lot of trouble going forward. Equipment rehab is my last one, and I need to talk a little bit about that. I'm just going to put in that start date, and then when I take a look at this, I haven't put in a finish date. And because I haven't put in a finish date, the software doesn't know how far along I am. So under actual duration, I would count up the days and recognize I've gone 23 days. Now, pay attention here that this shows a 30-day remaining duration, but I've gone 23. And after 23 days, I'm going to say, or the person reporting the task would say, look, I'm not going to be able to finish in 7 more days. I need more time. And you can make that change here. So under remaining duration, we're going to put 12, saying we need 5 more days. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the impact of that shortly. But what we've just done is we've entered in all the progress to our project as reported on page 629. All right, let's review this table and see some of the things that have just happened. First thing to note is that the 23 days that we've worked on the equipment rehab reports as 66% complete, because it's 23 divided by the 35, the 23 plus 12. If I take a look backwards, when it was just 23 days against a 30-day, I had showed I was 77% complete. So that continues to update. Okay, let's redo that. Okay, the actual cost is reporting the labor. Again, our project is just based on labor expenditures. If we had put in fixed costs or materials, those would show up here as well. But with the labor, it's showing that these 22 days of effort resulted in this amount of expense. So that's where the actual cost column is. That's pretty straightforward. And we see that's totaling up. So after March 31st, we spent $571,200 on labor, and that is a result of 7,600 labor hours, or man hours. Let's review the project in terms of the questions posed on page 629. And the first one in part 4A says, how is your project progressing in terms of cost and schedule? Let's deal with the cost first. We show here a cost of $571,200, which is based on the actual durations that we've had and the individual labor charges associated with those tasks. We're going to switch tables, and we're going to come to cost. And I'm first going to say that this is based on dollars. It's not based on earned value, and we'll have a separate discussion on earned value shortly. Understanding that the two, although they relate to each other, you can't mix the terms. So let's take a look at our baseline budget, which was $1.692 million, right? And that was based on the original labor man hours at the task durations we established. Now, what we show here is a new total cost, which is based on the actual cost for our completed tasks. Notice this is $7,600 instead of $96. It's $1,920 less. However, these both took longer than the original plan, so we had to add in a little over almost $18,000. So what we see here is an increase for the R&D product development from $150,000 to $166,400. Now, here's an in-progress task, the equipment rehab, and what we've done is we've taken that 30-day duration and changed that to 35. So this is approximately, if you will, 16% larger than the 528, because we're now 5 days more than the 30. So I add up all these numbers in this column, and they're going to get me to $1.796 million. Okay, now that's a variance, that's a change of $104,000, which is simply the subtraction of our total cost number minus our original budget, and that leaves me with $104. Okay, so how much is remaining? All right, this is actually this is how much is left to spend, not to meet the original baseline, but to meet our new total cost. So if I take the 1,796 revised estimate, subtract our actual expenses of $571,200, I'll get $1.224800. Okay, so again, looking at our cost table, we could say very simply, right now we're anticipating being over budget by about $104,000, and we still need $1.22, roughly $5 million left to finish our project. All right, the second half of the question asks about schedule. Let's take a look at the schedule. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our tracking. No, sorry, our entry. We can now see that, let's see, we'll slide this over. And what we'll do is we'll take a look at our Gantt chart. This will do just as fine. On the entry view, again, I'm on the entry view, I can see that I'm 29% done with my project. And what that 29% is, that's a relationship of time. And that's this 145 days, which I now show that I'm, if I look down here, here's my original baseline projection, and I can see that this last task is extended beyond that, and it's gone really from July 19th to July 26th. So I can say I'm about a week behind schedule right now, and this 145 days is my new duration. Now the 29% comes from, if I look back to my schedule, I look back to my tracking Gantt, and I take this 41.5 days of actual duration. It's basically going to recalculate back to, I divide that by 145, and I get a 29% duration. So I'm 29% done in terms of total days complete versus total days in the project. The next question deals with what activities have gone well, what activities have not gone well, and you'd want to address that in both terms of cost and schedule. If you want to look at schedule, we just go to tables, we can check out the variance table just to continue to look at some of the different features. And we can see here that the start variance shows, this one we started on time, we were 2 days late starting that one, 5 days, 4 days. And these are the projections on how we're going to have to start the rest of it based on the slippage that we see over here. And the finish variance, okay, again, this is against the early start, early finish baseline schedule. We can see where we're going. So you can take a look at that as far as your schedule. If you want to look at cost, if you want to talk about cost variance, go back to the cost table. And again, this is going to give us a straight comparison on how we did against budget. This one, we were over budget by $6,400, over budget by $11,500, and that one we were under budget. So that's just one way to address the second question, what has gone well and not gone well. You need to talk in terms of cost, schedule, and of course quality if you want to do some role play. The questions 3, 4, and 5 relate to earned value techniques. I'm going to discuss that in a separate video. Addressing question 6, estimated date of completion, we've already seen that, and that's in their entry table. Our new completion date is July 26th. That's pretty straightforward. And how well is the project doing in terms of priorities? You have to consider from the project priorities originally established, cost was your first priority for this project. Other priorities would include discussions on milestones, because those are key gate points along the life of your project, and of course you need some discussion on the critical path. So that sums up the non-earned value questions relating to Part 4A.